Good morning, I'm Josh Ellsworth with Stahls TV, and welcome to today's class, Mixed Media 2.0. For those of you that registered and were expecting to see Jenna this morning sharing all these wonderful examples that she's prepared, unfortunately, she came down a little ill this morning, and so I'm going to be the substitute teacher for today's class. But I've spent some time sort of looking through the samples that were prepared and added some actually that I wanted to show you, all with the goal of helping you understand how to mix and match different heat transfer vinyl materials, and also combining those heat transfer vinyl materials with screen printed transfers, sublimation, and really taking your designs to the next level through mixed media. Mixed media, as we know, can command higher profits, create cooler looks, and really be the difference in winning a customer and having a customer come back because they're wowed by the results. We welcome those of you that are attending either through GoToWebinar or we're broadcasting live again today on Facebook Live. And so feel free to chat in questions throughout today's presentation. I'll take many opportunities to answer those. And we've planned for roughly 45 minutes together. Might go slightly over because I've added some garments, but feel free to come and go as you please. This will be recorded and documented on Facebook Live on the Stahls All Things Heat Printing page, and also will publish out to stahlstv.com tomorrow under our broadcast archive. So without further ado, I want to talk a little bit about some of the samples we'll be creating today and the journey we're going to take together. We're going to start really basic and mixing and matching and layering basic heat transfer films. In this case, we'll start with fashion film and fashion film electric. Then we're going to move a little bit with combining basic materials with special effects. After that, we'll combine basic materials with digital materials, and then we will combine screen printed transfers with heat transfer vinyl. So quite a bit to get to, and a good place to start is over at the heat press, and today we'll be using our Hotronix Fusion heat press, which if you've watched me on classes before, you know this is my absolute favorite heat press that's out there on the market. And so the Hotronix Fusion operates as a drawer style or operates as a swing away style, meaning you get complete access to the heat print surface for alignment, layout, etc. Also, one of the beautiful things about this press is that you can click and change the bottom platens very easily. You can rotate the platens, remove them, lift them out to basically swap in based on what you're printing, because with heat printing, loadability is everything. Getting your item flat for accurate time, temperature, and pressure is key with a basic application, certainly with a mixed media application where you're combining different materials. So I'm going to start by swapping out this 16 by 20 platen. Lift it out. It's just a pin registration system, so it's very easy to change. And I'm going to drop in an 11 by 15 inch attachment for the particular placement that I'm getting ready to do. Now let's show you the basics of loading on the garment for those that may be new joining with us today. Splitting the garment open, threading it onto the heat press surface, making sure to get rid of any excess seams, get a completely flat heat printing zone. Notice on this garment, I've gotten rid of the hood of the pocket. I've also gotten rid of the hood itself and the drawstrings off of the edge, and then I'm going to complete a preheat, making sure to dial in my pressure accordingly as I'm completing my preheat. Now on the Hotronix Fusion, we do have a digital pressure readout, which allows me to dial that in exactly. The particular mixed media combo that I'll be doing right now is I'm going to combine fashion film in the blue layer with fashion film electric. Now both of these products apply at similar temperature and time settings because they are both in the fashion film product lineup. So I'm actually going to apply it for 320 degrees, and I'm going to start by tacking down the background layer. So getting a visual here to make sure everything is lined up and straight. There are laser alignment tools that are available for doing this. I'm going to just slide it down slightly to make sure this top edge of my transfer is on the hoodie. And I will start with a tack. Now, anytime you're doing layered application or mixed media applications, reducing the time that your first heat transfer vinyl goes down is going to be key. In this case, I'll tack it for just a few seconds, remove the carrier from the material, which will give me time to line up my next color. Now we've made this one so it aligns directly in. There's a gap outline around the outside edge of the design. And you'll notice that it's very difficult to get this whole thing on this platen. And so it's really pressing the limits of the 11-inch size. And it's very important I get a complete application on the blue layer as well as the silver layer. And so I can try to rotate the platen and sort of, but that puts some seams up in the way. And so really what you would want to do, we've made a little mistake here in the design of this. Gosh, this would be so much easier and be a single step application if it were just a ½ inch shorter on the sizing, but it's not, so we'll deal with what we have here. I'm going to make sure I do a full application here, and we'll teach you another technique. Notice this is off the edge of the press, so I want to be careful with that. I'm going to cover with a cover sheet. I'll give both layers a full 15-second application, 10 to 15 seconds. Good morning, Sunil in Trinidad. Appreciate you tuning in live with us today on Facebook. I'm going to give that the full application, and just because there was this edge hanging over, that would not be durable. I need to make sure that I slide this and get a full application pressure on that area as well. And so not ideal, like I said, size it a little smaller, but I'll give it the full application for the 10 to 15 seconds. And then I have a completed result. Just hot peel the backing away. And you can see we have a mixed media 2-color application that's extremely durable. Now, just to point out the specifics of the material here, we have fashion film as the cyan color, which is the outside layer, and we also have fashion film electric. And this particular one is called Prism, which has more of a diamond plate finish to it. It's available in silver, green, and also gold to get that effect. So that's a completed application, and I'll hold up the finished sample here for you. So you can take a look at the whole hoodie. You can see we got a nice oversized print. This is a polyester base hoodie. Fashion film does apply to polyester. You just want to make sure that that polyester is not going to scorch at that 320 degrees that's required. It's very important that we don't break the rules of that application temperature on something that's going to be laundered. So test your material prior to printing. If it will scorch at 320, then I'll switch to a product like Premium Plus that presses down at 280 degrees. And so for my next sample, I'm actually going to bring in one of those samples of Premium Plus. So back over at the heat press, I'm just going to grab my garments here. And this particular one is another hoodie application, but in this case, I'm going to combine Premium Plus with Glitter Flake. Now, the difference between Fashion Film and Premium Plus, I don't want you to get too confused here, is Fashion Film has a really sticky backing and also very good for fine detail, and I can do that sort of 2-second hot peel. Feels really nice on a garment. Premium Plus feels even better than Fashion Film on a garment, but you can't do quite as fine detail in the cutting, and also it presses at a lower temperature, which is going to allow me to do heat-sensitive items more effectively. Now, I'm going to show you the technique here. Let's load this on and take a look at what we have from a design size standpoint before we get too far along. Load this garment on, doing the same technique to make sure the hood's hanging off here. And then let's take a look at my design just laid out to make sure everything's going to fit. This particular zone is centered. And then I'm going to bring in the glitter flake to sort of take a look at the visual and how it's supposed to layer. And so Premium Plus has the same sort of benefits as Fashion Film, where I can just tack that background for a couple seconds. Now, you always want to preheat your garment. I'm going to skip that step for the sake of time, because these are just visual samples. They won't be laundered. But you do want to preheat your garment. You can tack Premium Plus for just a few seconds. You're going to let Premium Plus cool down a little bit more before you peel the backing. So it's more of a warm peel because it tends to grip to the garment a little more, and so you don't want to peel it hot right away. And so you sort of just start the edge, see if it's going to lift up, and it looks like we got a good adhesion. And you can see how it grips a little bit more to the sides of the material as you're peeling. And just be careful when you're pressing a stretchy material like this. Sort of trail it with your hands. Try not to stretch out the transfer in the garment too much, because that's going to make it difficult to align my next layer. In this case, Glitter Flake being my next layer. Position that into place. Notice how some areas have a gap outline and some areas of the Glitter Flake are intended to be direct layered over the Premium Plus. What happens here, anytime you're mixing glitter with another heat transfer vinyl or screen printed transfer, anything else as a base layer. If you've ever used glitter before, you can kind of see how it has like a little bit of a glitter powder that stays below the particle on the carrier. That will never transfer to your shirt, but it can transfer to another heat transfer film. And so for that reason, you really want to be careful with it and sort of do that tack layer as well and try to limit the amount of time that that carrier has to transfer over to the background film, or even perhaps leave a mark in it. So for the glitter flake, I'll give it a couple seconds. Just get that carrier off. That way it's not going to transfer over. It's going to limit the glitter transfer that will come over onto the Premium Plus in this case, or the indent it will leave through the film, because that carrier was sort of running directly through that background film and can leave a mark. Now I will cover and heat press them both together. It's very important that I reach the full application time, temperature, and pressure of the material that requires the most on the setting. So once again, for those of you that are joining us, feel free to type in your comments and questions throughout the presentation, whether that's on Facebook Live or GoToWebinar, because I do intend to stop here in a second and answer those for you. So we have a completed garment, and the real benefit here is now we're getting something that has the color of the Premium Plus to match the sort of neon of the drawstring or inside of the hood on this particular garment, which I believe is from J America. And then I also have the glitter flake material to add that sparkle and that bling. So it's just a way to mix your results, have something that pops, that stands out a little more. Okay, just to take some of the questions coming in on Facebook Live, we do sell a laser alignment tool. You can get that at Stahls.com. It's a standalone unit with 4 line lasers that can be adjusted down onto any heat press, swing away, or clamshell. And the question about the X with the running wing available in Easy View, Clip Arts, I believe that design was actually from CAD-Works Live. And so it was sort of created with the X and then welding together a wing. So you could probably recreate that in Easy View. I'm not sure if it's a standard clip art, but definitely in CAD-Works Live, which is a free online design program for those using vinyl cutters. You can do that. Any questions coming through on GoToWebinar right now, Taylor?
They want you to hold the shirt up one more time.
Which one?
I don't know.
All right, we'll do both of them. Okay, so here's a look at this. And actually, you want to go to the close-up on the table.
Yeah.
And so here you see the diamond plate finish of Fashion Film Electric combined with Fashion Film and the color cyan on the front of that hooded sweatshirt. Really nice look, sort of. The Fashion Film Electric I love because it can be masculine or feminine, so it's sort of universal as far as the appeal to your customers. And then let's bring in the other one here. We have the glitter flake mixed with the Fashion Film. And notice the gap outline in certain spaces, and then the direct overlap, the glitter flake with Premium Plus, the direct overlap on other spaces. So that's all in your artwork setup, and we have tons of tutorials on how to set up artwork through StahlsTV.com, tutorials on CAD-Works Live. Okay. If you did miss the first one being made, don't worry, you can watch the recording. If you're watching on Facebook, you can always back it up and re-watch it. Just moving to the next sample, now we're going to do the same combination, except I want to show you how to mix media sort of on different items and how to print different items as part of this. So back over at the heat press, we're going to swap in our 6x10 attachment, taking off the 11x15 lever and pulls right off. Interchangeable attachments are so important to a professional heat press business. The quicker you can do it, quicker you can move jobs through, and it makes it extremely convenient for you. Can use pillows and pads, but platens make the job so much easier. This is a lunchbox sort of bag from Wholesale Boutique. I'm going to undo the straps on it and try to isolate the print zone. In this case, sliding the front area over the 6x10 platen and trying to make sure it doesn't sort of fall down. I'll have to support it with my hand as I'm doing a preheat and my placement to make sure it's not going to slip off. And now I'm going to check my pressure because I've changed the attachment. I want to make sure I dial in my pressure. Remember, when you go to a smaller attachment, you do not need as much pressure as you need across the 16x20 attachment. Once again, we have a combination with glitter flake and Fashion Film. I always like to lay it out first to make sure I get the alignment right with scope of the entire design and how it's supposed to center and look on there. So in this case, I'm just going to center the E and let the design be a little off to the right because I think it looks better visually. Peel the fashion film off. I'm going to tack that glitter flake for just a couple seconds. Eliminates the shrinking, speeds up the process. Peel the backing away. And this is the benefit of the Stahls heat transfer vinyl lineup. A lot of these materials I can sort of tack and go. Now, remember on the last job, we tacked because glitter flake was the top layer. I don't need to worry about that now. Fashion film, which is my top layer, doesn't have anything that's going to transfer to the glitter flake. Because of the texture of the glitter flake, it's not going to leave a mylar mark or an indent there. So really, I just want to make sure my whole design is there. Now I do need a cover sheet because the glitter is exposed directly to the heater. I don't want any adhesive perhaps pressing through that glitter and getting on the heater, and I'm going to apply it for the full application. So some questions coming in. What's the name of the silver vinyl on the dark blue shirt? That's called Fashion Film Electric, and the color is our Silver Prism is the name, which is like a diamond plate finish. Hot peel the backing, and now I have a completed design. So I'll hold that up for you. And so as far as your placement goes on this one, it's kind of tough to see on the camera here, so I'm just going to sort of walk it closer, and you can kind of see the glitter sparkle mixed with the name drop. Anytime you're decorating pattern-like surfaces, it's good to pick complementing or high contrast colors, otherwise it's tough to be legible, and so just consider that. I'm personally not the biggest fan of this metallic gold on this particular bag. Perhaps a black or something would have popped better, but you get the idea of how you can mix and match these different heat transfer materials. Okay, now we're going to sort of step up the difficulty level on some different things, and now I want to show you how to combine glitter flake with Fashion Film Electric plus heat transfer foil, which is a new material we have out that when combined with our CAD-CUT adhesive creates sort of really nice mirror-like foil finishes. And so I'll start by swapping out the attachment on my heat press. I'm going to move back to my 11 by 15 attachment. Drop that into place, and then I'll go and grab the garment and meet you back here at the press. So just to show you what we have working here, I have a sheet of heat transfer foil. This is just, comes on a roll, a bunch of different colors, and you just trim the sheet to what color you want. There's a lot of cool techniques you can do with heat transfer foil. I have glitter flake. I have Fashion Film Electric, this time in the color orange. And then I have CAD-CUT adhesive, which basically is the product that's going to be the base for the foil. And there's a certain order of operations here that I need to think through, but let's start by getting our garment loaded. Any additional questions coming on GoToWebinar as I'm loading this, Taylor?
We do have a question. They wanted to know the fabrics of both the two shirts that you pressed in the beginning.
Those are polyester based fabrics, and so they get that sort of static looking print by dyeing the polyester, but they're 100% polyester, both hoodies were. Okay, and so this is a flowy tank from Bella, and I'm going to start by loading that onto the press because it's so wide, sort of trying to make sure it's centered by holding up my tag and taking a look at to make sure it's positioned properly. I will cover it and do a preheat and make sure I dial in my pressure here. And then let's think through the combinations here. I'll sort of let you think with me. This is going to be a vertical layout that says love. So the thing about the order here is the foil ultimately needs to lay down on this adhesive at some point in the process. But if that foil is just laid loosely over this football, the foil can have a tendency, it may stick to the football ruining my complete design. So it's very important that I get the foil down onto the garment before I get any other heat transfer vinyl that it may stick to and overlap. And so what I'd like to do is, I notice how Jenna had prepared this and trimmed it. She actually made it in such a way that I can press both of these two together because she trimmed the edge so close. So let me start by laying those out and centering those. Glitter flake. And then the adhesive. I will work to sort of get as close to that and make sure it's not, the Mylar carrier is not behind it. You can see the Hawks word mark is designed to be a part of the L in love. And now the adhesive for the foil calls for 300 degrees and it calls for a light pressure. So I'm fine bumping it up to 320. That's not too far away from 300 because I know the glitter flake is going to require that higher temperature, as is the electric football that I'm going to bring in. So I'm fine with that, but I do want to make sure that I only apply a light pressure here to the adhesive layer. The reason that's important is if you apply too much pressure, it will sink down into the garment that you're actually printing, and it will make for sort of a spotty foil application when I go to overlay the foil. And so the glitter flake, it sort of acts as the tack for it. I just want to be careful because it's a very light pressure to make sure it's not going to peel up when I'm peeling it. And same thing with the adhesive. I'll remove it. And that gives me a good base to bring on my foil. Now the actual foil layer itself takes that same 300 degrees and it takes 10 seconds. It's okay if it overlaps the glitter a little bit because I know it won't stick to the glitter, but if that were another color of heat transfer vinyl, I would be extremely careful to trim that close to make sure it doesn't overlap because it may stick sort of to the outside edge. And so what I'll do is I'll lay the foil down. Can't put the football down yet. I suppose one thing I could do, if I'm thinking through this application, is grab a pair of scissors. One thing I could do is sort of trim the foil into separate components. What I'm trying to do is when you would set this up to sort of run production, you would be able, the least amount of steps, if I'm running 30 of these, the better. So I take the time to think about it on the first application. And now I should be able to inlay this football, which is designed to act as the letter O in the word love, sort of at an angle. And notice, it's not, the foil's not in its way and the foil's not going on top of it. That allows me to heat press everything here together with the cover sheet for the 10-second application. So notice how I did that. Just sort of run through that application in your mind. Sometimes it takes getting it to the heat press, getting it on the garment when you're mixing and matching different products. Now the foil is a cold peel. And so I'll wait till this whole thing cools completely down before I peel the fashion film electric as well. And so that's always best when you're working with foil. Remove it from the heat press. I'm going to bring it over to the table. If I were running a whole bunch of these, I could stack up the designs and just sort of let them cool down and come back and peel them before I fold them and box them. And then after it's cooled down, basically we're talking about room temperature, I'm going to remove the carrier and notice how the foil is only sticking to the print. So you get just a really cool look here. And then the fashion film electric can be a hot or a cold peel. So it's fine. It's a little tougher to release cold, but I can peel that away and I get a completed design. Notice I've kept the bright mirror-like finish of the foil by doing it that way. If I would have come back over it with a separate application for the fashion film electric while the foil was on the shirt, it's going to mute that foil finish up. And what I'll do is I'll throw it back on the heat press to show you that. Because some people prefer this look. So if you put it back on the heat press with the foil and with a cover sheet and just give it an additional few seconds, you'll notice a big change in the foil, the sort of luster of the finish. So peel that off, and then you can see how it sort of mutes a little more into the garment. I'll bring it close so we can take a look at that. You can see it blends more into the garment, has more of a lower luster sheen, which some people prefer. But the idea here is this is a mixed media design. We're working with fashion film electric, the glitter flake, and the foil, and you can mix and match everything. So that will show you just sort of a higher technique or a more complicated technique of combining stuff. Once again, that was a flowy tank from Bella. All right, so we're going to go back over to the heat press. Now I'm going to show you how to combine a digital transfer with glitter flake or any heat transfer film and show you the concepts behind that. So I'm going to grab a garment. In this case, we have a dress, a denim dress from Wholesale Boutique, which is another cool sort of trendy item. And I'm going to do a large monogram on the back of the dress. And so I'll split the dress the same way to get rid of the buttons and everything. Onto the machine, being sure not to catch anything on the press as I'm loading it. Using the tag to sort of center it. All tags aren't centered, but it's sort of our best point of reference when we have something large on a smaller platen. Preheat. And watch what we're doing here. We are going to take, because we want a full color pattern, so we're going to take a full color transfer. You could produce this yourself on a print cut machine like a Roland VersaCam with any pattern you would want. You can even sort of knock out the center and just do a ring. You can do whatever design element you want that's full color. In this case, we just did sort of a cheetah print in a red colorway. We'll position that into place in the same process. Tack this down for a couple seconds just to get it to stay. This particular product is our CAD-COLOR Express Print product, which is sort of our all-purpose print cut material. And then I'm going to bring the glitter flake, position it over top, sort of as a point of contrast here, and heat press this for the full application, right? If you're thinking, no, that's not right. Okay, because we don't want the glitter flake to stick to the express print, to the film backing. We'll pick up that glitter spark. We'll also notice that the carrier is running through the design. That will create an indent. And so we need to run that same process. That 2-second tack is going to be awesome for you when you're layering, mixing, and matching. Just give it that 2 to 3 seconds. Peel the carrier back, and then you're going to finish it for the full application. Now you will still, on some materials, get a little bit of glitter transferring over, but the concept here is that you will greatly reduce that. And keep in mind, there's no adhesive on the glitter particles, so once it goes through one wash cycle, that will come off of the transfer. But it's just a better product to present to the customer. So you can see, now we have a pattern, we have the glitter flake monogram designed to it, and we've customized this really nice sort of higher end item. And give you a finished look of that, that we can sell for a high profit. I placed it down sort of center back because when you're decorating ladies' garments, you got to consider there may be long hair and you don't want to cover the particular design. This is a button up on the front, so if I wanted to do a left chest monogram, that's real easy to do as well with the use of those interchangeable attachments, in that case a 6x10. All right, I'm going to sit down over at the table and take some questions here for a moment before we do another sort of digital and heat transfer film combination. So where can you buy the CAD-CUT adhesive? You can buy that at Stahls.com. It's one of the questions from Lauren there on Facebook. Can you do a quick press to both the glitter and the glitter flake? And so that question from Brian is referencing another product we sell that's just called CAD-CUT glitter, which is a smooth glitter. You can do a quick press on that, but it's a cold peel. So you need to wait for it to cool to remove the backing. So one tip I give is keep a piece of metal, a cookie sheet, something nearby the press. You can put it on the press so you don't have to remove it from the press to pull the heat out and peel that backing on more cold peel materials. You can cut the fashion film yourself. So all of these designs were produced on a vinyl cutter. Can be a craft-based cutter, can be one of the ones we sell like a Graphtec or Roland, but very easy to create. And I believe how much to back off the pressure, Maureen asked, when you're using a smaller platen. That refers to when you isolate the print zone with a pillow or a small platen, reducing the pressure. Technically there's an equation for it. So if you took 16 by 20 inches and sort of divided that by 2. Basically, let me do some quick math. 16 by 20, 16 times 20 is 320 square inches. So if I take 11 times 15, I probably get 155 square inches, I believe, which is about half of 16 by 20. So I would cut the pressure in half that's being applied to that smaller surface. So that just gives you a little bit of a concept of how to calculate that. Steve agrees having multiple platens is a must, but why do they vary in thickness? This causes pressure adjustments when you swap them. And I agree, and that's a question I have. I wish we could make them all one thickness. I'm sure there's an engineering or technical reason, but anytime you do load a new platen onto the press, make sure you dial in the pressure. That's sort of a little quirk with them right now. Okay, and a good software to cut designs with multicolor from Manny CADWorks Live is what we promote and recommend. Visit stahlstv.com, and you can certainly read more about that. What kind of questions we have coming in at GoToWebinar?
They wanted to know what was the program that you used to decorate the tank top with the L on it?
That was actually created, the tank top with the L was created from CADWorks Live as well. And so it's just utilizing functionality in there like back minus front, bringing in clip art. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do once you start to learn how to utilize the free tools in CADWorks Live. And so we'll make it a point to take this design, for instance, and show you how we set that up and publish a tutorial on stahlstv.com on how to set that up in the coming weeks. Any other questions?
Somebody was concerned that you didn't do full 18 seconds on the glitter flake for that shirt, and they were just wondering if that's going to cause an issue.
So glitter flake requires 15 seconds from memory to apply, so you do want to make sure at some point in the process you get the full application temperature and time for every material that's on the garment. And so take your highest that's required and make sure at some point in the process you do get that. For memory, I thought I got that, but if I didn't, I apologize. You certainly would want to make sure you hit that full application. All right, good on questions. All right, so tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to start moving my heat press up to 340 degrees because we have some sort of CAD-CUT screen printed transfer mixed media stuff I want to talk about. And while we're doing that, I'll press one more sample that combines a digital transfer with CAD-CUT. So let me get the heat press moving in the right direction here. This Fusion does have a digital control board, so it's very easy just with sort of plus and minus commands to move the heat press up. I do have a 360 degree application, so we'll see how quick I can be. I'll work it up there and maybe I'll catch it right at 340. Let me bring a bag over to the press. In this case, we're going to do the same sort of thing, a digital transfer created from Express Print on a print cut machine. Also, I'm really excited to say that March 20th, we'll be having another Facebook Live class where we'll be launching a product called CAD-CUT Patterns that allows you to buy pattern products, sort of customize those and colorize them and order them ready to cut just on a vinyl cutter. So we'll be launching that soon. As always, when I'm pressing a bag, split, thread, get to a flat printing area if I can. In this case, these straps are pretty flat. I could bring in a smaller 6x10 attachment if I wanted, but for the sake of time, I'm going to start by preheating and dialing in my pressure. Same process here. I have to decide sort of what order I want if there's overlap. And so in this case, the bow does overlap the monogram design. When you're heat printing bags, you always want to sort of align your design a little bit higher, imagining that there is going to be product in the bag, but I'm not wanting to get that bow too close to those straps. So let me just drop it down slightly and position the whole thing together here. Standing in front of the press makes life easier for me. Okay, so we'll do that. So again, we're going to tack this down. Just a few seconds to get it to temporarily stay. Then we're going to layer the glitter flake on top wherever we'd like it, making sure to cover with the cover sheet because this is exposed to the heater. Tacking the glitter flake down to prevent any mylar marks or residue that may want to transfer over. and then I'm going to give them the full, complete application. In this case, 15 seconds is required for the glitter flake to finish it off. Is there any media that you shouldn't do a quick press when layering? Brian asked that. Not really, as long as you hit the full application. If it's a heat transfer vinyl, you can always do a quick press. You won't want to do a quick press on something like sublimation or a screen printed transfer or another technology. It's just not going to work. But if it's a heat transfer vinyl, you can always do the quick press and you can sort of see the finished result. This would be a great bag or item to merchandise for spring, once again, from Wholesale Boutique. All right, so we should be working up to 340 degrees. Let me just talk in concept about why you would want to sort of move away from heat transfer vinyl and start to utilize screen printed transfers for mixed media. And really, the big reason why is when you're screen printing, or even when you're ordering screen printed transfers, it allows you to do finer detail without weeding, number one, wouldn't we all love that? And then it also gives you lower price points on quantity of a design. So if I have a design concept that I want to go print at a tournament, I would be better if I think I'm going to sell 100 shirts or a couple hundred shirts to design a sort of overall screen printed transfer design concept, order those in, and then have a personalization zone that I can cut on site or use pre-cut letters or numbers to personalize on site, sort of mixing the media. So you do all the personalization with your heat transfer vinyl, but you do your sort of quantity of designs and screen printed transfers. So I'm going to need the 16 by 20 platen for this particular one. Going to drop that in. And if you'll just hang tight here, I'm going to grab my screen printed transfer and garment. Talk to you a little bit about that. So first things first, let's thread this t-shirt onto the press, pulling it down to the shoulders and then retracting it to make sure the collar's off the edge. That helps me line up the shirt, get it loaded right. As we mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you change your pressure for your platen. In this case, the screen printed transfer is going to require a medium to firm pressure. And so let's take a look at the transfer first. This is ink on paper. This is actually a plastisol ink screen printed onto a transfer paper. You order this from Transfer Express, is the Stahls company that provides these. They have an online designer, so you can order screen printed transfer. What you would do is receive these. You can order 24 sheets. Basically, the price is per sheet, so fit as many designs as you want across a sheet. In this case, we have one print per sheet. And so you can order, let's say, 100 of these or 50 of these for the football team. You basically just lay your transfer out. I'm going to heat press that down. Every transfer comes with a recipe. In this case, it's a GOOF-proof formula, which takes 365 degrees for 4 seconds, or there's an alternate application that's 340 degrees for 10 seconds. So I use the alternate application because I want to be much closer to the 340 degrees. Why? Because I'm going to bring in thermofilm for a sort of number drop. So now, for the whole football team, I can get the benefit of screen printed transfers with some of this fine detail. I'm not going to want to weed at a good price point, but then I'm going to bring just a standard white thermofilm, fashion film, whatever heat transfer vinyl you want. Could be glitter flake if this is a cheerleading design, and I drop in the personalization as a second step. And so I've created a personalization zone within this transfer. I drop in the number of the particular player, and then I complete the thermofilm application, which is 330. In this case, I'll run 340 degrees. 10 degrees higher is not going to matter for the 6 to 8 seconds on the thermofilm, peeling the backing. Now, I've gotten the value of a screen printed transfer with the value of a personalized name drop. So just a cool concept there. I'm going to, as I'm getting ready to load the next shirt, I'm going to stop to look at some questions here. So can you buy a screen printed transfer by the yard and cut with my plotter? Unfortunately, no. You buy the heat transfer vinyl like that. The screen printed transfers are designs that are pre-done for you, ready to print. The benefit, especially if you run an e-commerce store as well, is you don't commit the sort of screen printing to the garment until you sell. So that means I can merchandise more colors, I can merchandise more sizes, and just keep sort of loose transfers, which helps to limit my inventory risks and my spend in inventory, protect my cash flow, which is really important for any business. All right. Any source for girls' sleeveless softball jerseys in red with navy and white accents, from Todd. Wow. I wish I knew that specifically, but I know Teamwork Athletic always has a good range. I'm not sure if they have that exact combination. A4 would be another good source for jerseys. There's quite a few other ones. So let me respond to that question afterwards when I can do some quick research. All right. I believe that's all the questions. Anything else coming through on GoToWebinar before we do our next print?
One quick question about the lifespan of cover sheets. How long do they last?
Pretty much till they wear down. So there's two basic types of cover sheets. I prefer, and I'm using a cover sheet called craft paper. Comes in a 25 pack, and one sheet can last hundreds of applications. Really, what will happen is when you're pressing like black polyester with a cover sheet or red polyester, you'll start to see the dyes transferring to the cover sheet, and so you won't want to use that sort of used cover sheet on a fresh white t-shirt for fear of those dyes transferring. But I have a cover sheet that I'll use that's sort of dyed mostly black, but I use it all day on black t-shirts and black track jackets, etc. So hundreds of applications. Teflon sheet has the advantage of not having the dyes stick to it as much and being reusable, but the reason I don't use a Teflon sheet as much is I like something a little more rigid and easier to place. The Teflon sheet's a little floppier and sort of loose to work with, but all are reusable for hundreds of applications. What else, Taylor? Good, got the thumbs up, so we're all good. All right, so let's go ahead back over to the heat press. I'm gonna bring in a hot split transfer. So this was goof proof. It gives you good opacity, meaning white stays white. You're not going to see any strike through the garment. It feels good, feels like screen printing, but does have a little bit of a feel to it. And so Transfer Express manufactures hot split transfers as well, which is basically just the ink on the paper without the powdered adhesive. And so that gives you a little softer feel, but also doesn't have the opacity. So I'm going to load this shirt, preheat. In this case, I'm going to do sort of a splattered design, and I'm going to mix it with flock material to add some dimension. That's one of the benefits. Can't really get a screen printed transfer in flock that I know of, and so this is going to allow you to sort of mix the media. I'm going to do a print down the side of the shirt here. Heat press the hot split for its full application. I can't tack the hot split at all. For some reason I'm questioning myself on whether that's on the right way, and I'm glad I did, because I want it to be the other way. Give hot split the full application, 360 degrees for 10 seconds at a medium to firm pressure. Notice I'm not doing any specific alignment on these, tight alignment. And basically what I mean is I'm not looking to have something that runs right inside of and fits perfectly to the I, the N, and the D, because that would be really challenging with a screen printed transfer in mixed media. You're much better off going a little more abstract in case you have any stretching or shrinking. And so in this case, you know, it's a little more abstract of a placement. I'm not worried if one's a little bit higher, a little bit lower. I don't have to place it directly within a specific area, which is going to make it really production friendly for doing volume and still get the benefit of a cool look. So you have hot split on there, which looks really good, feels really soft if you could feel through the screen. And then I'm going to press CAD-CUT flock, which technically takes 330 degrees for 10 to 15 seconds. I'm at 360 degrees. I'm still going to run it for its 15 seconds, so you can break the rules of heat printing a little bit and over apply materials. You just want to make sure you don't under apply them. Flock is a cold peel, so this is a raised sort of velvety texture material. It's been cut on a vinyl cutter. I'm just going to wait for it to cool down slightly, and then I'm going to remove the carrier. And it's going to be tough to pick up this texture on this, but you definitely have like a velvet, fuzzy texture on this, and it looks really good sort of combined and mixed with other materials. All right, we're running up on almost out of time, but there's one application that I was really excited to show you that I want to make sure that I get to, and that is sublimation and using sublimation with other polyester-based heat transfer materials, in this case glitter flake. And so sublimation applies at 375 to 400 degrees. For the case of glitter flake, which is what I'm going to use it with, I'm going to boot it up to 375. And sublimation takes anywhere between 45 and 60 seconds. When you're doing it on top of glitter, I'm going to do it for 35 seconds here, and we have specific videos that walk you through the actual instructions for this. And then I'm going to start by loading on my garment, which I'll grab here. Now, on this, you want to be a little bit careful. There's two ways to basically sublimate glitter and mix the media. There is the way that's on the garment, which is what I'm going to do. And so for this, it's very important that you don't have a garment that's heat sensitive. In this case, I'm using a 50-50 shirt, a black shirt as well, 100% cotton shirt. Typically, I wouldn't want to do this on a tri-blend or a performance tee because that's going to be very heat sensitive. So what I'll start with is just a preheat to get a flat surface. This is just white glitter heat transfer material. It's tough to see glitter through the camera, but there is a nice little sparkle to this. I'm going to heat press that down onto the shirt. I'm just going to tack it for a couple seconds. I am using the Hotronix Fusion heat press. We do have some great package offers on that available from Stahls.com. Tack the glitter down, so following the same process. Now I'm going to take my sublimation transfer sheet. So this is printed on a special sublimation printer with special inks. And this particular one, we just did a pattern fill, because patterns I don't need to register exactly, once again, on top of the letter A. I'm just going to make sure that it's all large enough than my particular print. And it's tough to see through the paper, so I'm just going to sort of bend back at the corners, making sure I'm covering at all areas, and sort of come up with the look. Another cool thing that might be interesting to see is you can sort of trim this at an angle. So those sort of split prints are very popular. So trimming sort of a sheet and then laying it and only having it cover partial of the glitter. I'm working with some shears here rather than scissors, but I'm going to do it anyways. Maybe this will be a cool effect. So try to trim this as nicely as you can. Obviously, normal scissors would be easier, but this might be kind of cool anyways. Get rid of any of those little extra pieces that are hanging out. Now I'm going to sort of put it corner to corner here. Make sure it's covering the design. And then I'm going to cover the whole thing with a cover sheet, in this case, since the glitter is exposed directly to the heater. And then I will run the sublimation application, which in this case is 375 degrees for 35 seconds. So when you talk about what can you sublimate, I know glitter flake is certainly one of those materials in white or lighter colors that works well. We have some success with flock, although it's not a lab certified application, meaning it's not guaranteed for 50 wash durability. I like to call these more creative uses, sort of experiencing with mixed media, and I encourage you to try stuff like this. Wash test it, sort of experiment, and figure out how can you separate your business from other companies that are out there. After it's been applied, I'm going to hot peel the sublimation sheet, and you sort of get that cool effect where it's colorized a portion of it. Of course, you can colorize the whole thing. You can do another pattern here and get that impact. Now, if you look really close, you'll notice that some of this transfer sheet was overlapping the black material. So in this case, you'll have a little bit of a halo around the design. And so that's where the sort of second method comes in, where you can actually just take these loose letters, lay them onto a non-stick cover sheet, a Teflon sheet, sublimate the letters on the cover sheet first. Then you peel them and place them on your garment and apply. But I just wanted to show you the concept, and you can be creative and follow our more detailed tutorials, but you can sublimate onto glitter flake to get some really cool effects. And this is the glitter flake material, not the plain glitter material, because that will not accept sublimation. So whether you want to mix and match screen printed transfers with heat transfer films, whether you want to mix and match different styles of heat transfer films and glitters or digital transfers, there are a ton of use cases and a ton of opportunities for mixed media. I hope this tutorial taught you some of them. We're 5 minutes past our ending time, so for those of you that need to go and get back to work, go ahead. I'm going to stick around for maybe another 5 or 10 minutes and take additional questions. But for those of you that need to leave, thank you for attending this morning. All right, any questions coming through on GoToWebinar first?
Yes, we have someone who you were talking about sublimating on flock, and they wanted to know what is your best experience with that for a recipe?
Recipe, it's the same as the glitter flake, 375, 35 seconds onto the flock. You're not going to get as sort of bright, vibrant color as you get on the glitter, because the glitter is a little flatter than the flock because it has the pile and the fiber to it, but you get a pretty cool fashion result. But you don't want to try to match Coca-Cola red and expect to maintain that color. Okay, so will all Stahls, the question from Miranda is, will all Stahls heat transfer vinyl products be okay to slightly overlap on polytrans transfers? So I found in general, slightly overlap mixing with screen printed transfers is doable. Once again, this isn't something that every single combination is put through 50 wash cycles, but I've personally used them for garments I've laundered and have a lot of success on slight overlap. I would not recommend a full overlap, meaning a full sort of block background out of screen printed transfer and then full overlap on top. So slight overlap with like distressed effects, splatters, go for it. Let's see. Could you use a spray adhesive for foil? Sounds like a creative application. I'm not really sure what the intent or what that means, but the foil basically will come off onto anything through heat. It will stick to it, and then even if it comes in contact with a sticky carrier or piece of tape, it will come off of the foil and stick to it. So it's very sort of finicky. You want to make sure you protect the surface until you are ready to apply it to something. It may stick to a spray adhesive, I don't know. All right, can you scroll down a little bit, Tracy? I'll definitely do a tutorial on the tank top that we did. This will be recorded, so you'll be able to watch the whole recording on Facebook Live. It has been recorded. I think we got most of the questions. So if you have any additional ones, or if you're watching this after the fact, not live, feel free to type them in. We'll continue to watch this thread on Facebook Live and answer them. We have a class, another class I'm doing on March 30th after I get back from the ISS Atlantic City show, and it's all about heat printing hats and headwear. So mark that date on your calendar, March 30th. You can find all the information out on stahlstv.com. Thanks for attending and have a great rest of the week.